What's up, Watt fans? I am Nia, the Vixen of Fiction here on YouTube, and I am so excited to share with you my ratings and rankings for the first 4 episodes of The Wheel of Time. Now, I am a huge fan of the books, and I did read the books ages ago, and I was tempted to do a reread of the book series, but I decided to watch the show so I could just enjoy it for what it is after I heard that it was going to be a little bit different. So I will have spoilers for the shows for episodes 1 through 4 in here, but I will not have any book spoilers. So let's get right into it. Here, the episode begins with a monologue by Moraine, and she's explaining that the dragon has been reborn, has come again, and it's come of age, and they don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So her mission is to find the dragon, and we get this really cool shot of Moraine and Lan. Now, as far as openings go, the scene is not action-packed, but I think Rosamund Pike, her voice sells it, and the scene itself is shot really well. It looks really good, and the two of them walking out looks really cool. So this one works for me. And then we jump right into the next scene where we've got the Red Aes Sedai led by Leandrin, and they have captured a young man who has been taken by the madness, and you can tell that these women mean business. These redcoats catch him and gentle him. But then you see Lan and Moraine in the distance, and Moraine is like, nope, he's not the one. And it cuts away from there to this beautiful scenery, and you can see that there are skyscrapers that have been overgrown to make this landscape. It's so stunning, which I think is definitely a positive point in the episode. And from there we go to the scene with Nynaeve and Egwene. We finally meet them, and they're at the women's circle, and Egwene's going through the ritual. All of this is gorgeous. She's in the water. She actually gets pushed in the water and has to go with the flow, and it's gorgeous. They get all the points here for the scenery. It's just stunning. Next, we meet Rand and his father Tam. They are coming into Emma's Field probably from their farm. They're walking down the road. That's all nice. You get to meet him for the first time. Emma's Field is part of the Two Rivers region, and when we get into Emma's Field, we're then in the tavern, and we get to see just the whole village. It's really, really cool. So they've really got a good setup. The set does make you feel like you're really in this village. And it's here that we meet the rest of our merry band. We get Perrin. We find out he's married. He's got a wife. And we also meet Matt, who is quite a character. And everybody congratulates Egwene when she returns, and she's now part of the women's circle officially. Everybody's having a good time, but it looks like Rand is hoping to get some quiet time with Egwene, and she is just making herself very busy around the tavern. Moraine comes in with Lan, and Lan opens the door, and it's like the whole place gets really quiet, like bars get when strangers walk in. And you can tell Moraine is an Aes Sedai, and a lot of the people seem to be very uncertain about her being there. So up to this point, everything's kind of cool, but then there's this awkward situation with Perrin and his wife. There's some really weird grabby at the belly type thing that we don't actually get to know what that means. So it comes off as kind of awkward. Also kind of awkward is the whole situation with Matt's parents. Like, his mom is a mess, and his dad is not such a good guy in this. And the mom kind of tells Matt that he's going to be just like his dad. But Matt is really good with his sister, so already we're getting this establishment that, you know, he really cares about his family, and he especially really cares about his little sisters, which is very sweet. Then we get a really cute moment with Rand and Egwene. It's very sweet, and you can tell that, okay, they're actually a couple. And they're about to get it on when we switch to a scene with Moraine in a hot tub. And then Lan joins her in the hot tub. I appreciate this scene, but it did throw me off a bit. That's okay. I'm going with it. It's platonic, and I think it's meant to show the deep connection that the Aes Sedai has with her warder. We cut back to Egwene and Rand, and she's being super distant with him, and he finally gets out of her that she's been asked by Nynaeve to become a wisdom. Now, she says she hasn't decided yet, but Rand knows that if she does this, then they don't have a future together, because wisdoms don't get married and they don't have kids. The next morning, Padan Fain comes into town, and he's a peddler. He's got all kinds of goodies, and he's just in time for Beltane, which is a big celebration for the town where they light lanterns for the people that they've lost, and then they celebrate. So Matt's trying to sell this bracelet that he stole from one of the girls that he was flirting with at the tavern, and Padan Fain totally rips him off, but I mean, the bracelet was stolen, so what do you expect? But he gets the lantern, and it's all good. And then we cut to Egwene and Rand, and they officially break up, but the scene is stunning. Surrounded by mountains, I'll take it. So Moraine's been kind of like checking out everybody around town. She's looking for who she can sense some power from, and she comes across Nynaeve in a cave, and I'm sure she senses something from her, and so she's questioning her, but she finds out Nynaeve is too old, she believes, to be the wisdom, because Nynaeve is 25 or 26 here, and the person that they're looking for would be right around 20. Nynaeve then meets up with Egwene, and they talk about how she's going to become her wisdom apprentice and how they're sensing the wind, and there's something strange going on in the wind, and Nynaeve can sense it, and I believe Egwene can sense it too. Back in the village again, we've got Perrin and Rand are talking with Matt, and they give Matt some money. They give Matt some money for the lanterns, which he already got because he stole the girl's bracelet. Nonetheless, they give him some money. He doesn't accept it at first, but then he does. But what we find out in the distance, we see that Moraine is watching them. So while Moraine is watching them, trying to find out who in the village might be the dragon reborn, who might be the one who's wielding all this hidden power, lands out looking around through the woods. Everybody's sensing something weird. They think an Eyeless might have come into town the night before, and Lan comes across just this disgusting carnage. It's gross. So now he's like, okay, there's something going on. So now it's time for the celebration, and Rand and his father Tam, they're going to celebrate in private back on their farm, while most of the villagers are celebrating over by the water. They're going to put the lanterns out in the water. It's really actually very, very beautiful. But Rand and Tam, they are just doing their own thing. Nynaeve also is kind of like set back a little bit. She's doing her own thing too. So some people, it looks like they're celebrating in private, while a lot of the villagers kind of like really gather together and celebrate together. Once they mourn for the people that they lost, it is time to party. I mean, they get back to the village and they are throwing down. They're having a good time. There's these really cool dance circles. It's like they're having a party. These people know how to party. Egwene is dancing with a young man named Tom, and all of a sudden Tom is hit in the back with an axe. Like, this comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden there are these Trollocs. They don't know what it is, but they're being attacked. The people go screaming all over the place. People are falling all over the place. It's a mess. Tam and Rand are attacked on their farm by one of these Trollocs, and Tam pulls out this really cool sword, and he's got some moves, and he's taking this thing out, but the thing gets him. I keep calling it the thing, but it's a Trolloc. The Trolloc gets him, and he's really getting hurt. Rand finally gets up from wherever Rand was knocked out at and stabs him through the throat, so now the Trolloc is down. Tam is injured, but he's alive. Back at the village, Nynaeve and Egwene, they try to help somebody, but it's so much carnage. It's a mess. They can't save this guy, and we find Matt gets into shelter with his parents, but his sisters aren't there. He's like, where are the girls? His parents don't know. He is pissed, but he runs out and he goes to look for his sisters. He finds them, thank goodness, and he ushers them off to safety. But now Nynaeve and Egwene are in trouble. They've been caught by a Trolloc. They try to fight him off. Like, Nynaeve is like shivving the thing in the gut, and all of a sudden they're about to get slaughtered. I mean, this Trolloc has got them cornered, and all of a sudden there's this light that slices the Trolloc in half. They look over and it's Moraine. She's got this cool powers and she's swirling them around. She's taking stuff out. It's really cool looking. And you can see the way that Moraine and Lan work together. Like, he's protecting her. Anything that comes her way, he's getting it. And that way she's able to use her powers to, like, really just start taking out these Trollocs. Now, Perrin and his wife, they're trying to hide people. They're shoved them into the blacksmith building, and they're trying to, like, get people hidden into places. And the Trollocs bust through. So now Perrin and his wife, Layla, they're fighting these Trollocs, and, you know, Layla is throwing down. Perrin is kicking butt. I mean, it's cool looking until it's not. So Perrin is down. He is kicking butt on this Trolloc. I mean, he is going off. He's like got this animal wildness is just taking over. And he hears this noise behind him. He thinks he's about to be attacked by a Trolloc. He swings his axe back and it's Layla. So he slices her right in the gut. Oh, it's tragic. But I mean, it did look like she was about to hit him. It looked like she was about to attack him. I'm sure it was the heat of the moment, because they're saying that, you know, it wasn't on purpose. She wasn't trying to kill Perrin. It just looked like she was. So now she's dead and he's devastated. Now the townspeople are fighting back now that Moraine is there to help them out. But more Trollocs keep coming, and Lan is down. He's getting like in a fist fight tussle with one of these Trollocs. And while he's down, Moraine gets hurt. Like, this Trolloc throws something out of this sword knife thing, goes right through her shoulder, and she is hurt really bad. Lan gets up, takes the thing out, and he's like, we got to get out of here. There's too many. They just keep coming. But Moraine is not willing to sacrifice one of these kids, because she believes one of these guys is who she's looking for. So she's like, light, give me strength, and she starts ripping these massive stones out of the building. She starts taking out the Trollocs until they are completely wiped out. And then the next morning, there's like the aftermath. People are injured. Things are just destroyed and ruined. Rand comes back into town thinking that it was just him and his dad that were attacked by these Trollocs. Come to find out, the whole town has been devastated. But Tam is in bad shape. He needs help. Egwene goes to Rand. They're just relieved that each other are alive. So they have this really nice embrace. And he's like, my dad, he's messed up. Where's Nynaeve? And then Egwene has to tell him Nynaeve is gone. Like, she saw the Trolloc just take her away. But luckily, Moraine is still there. Even though she's injured, she heals Tam. And then Rand turns around and is like, you did this. You brought this upon us. And she's like, look, let me tell you what's really going on. I'm here looking for you guys, but they're here looking for you guys too. When Lan looks up, they're like, what is that? There are more Trollocs are coming down the mountain, coming after them. And Moraine tells them, we have to get out of here because they're coming for you guys. And if you're here, they're going to come here. So this is an awkward part because this is all moving very, very quickly. But they just up and leave, which I feel like they should have taken more time to leave, just to say some goodbyes. I know that they rushed it. They made it seem like these Trollocs were coming right down the mountain, and if they didn't get out right now, that the Trollocs were going to be there. But it did seem very rushed because that's how we end. They're leaving, just like that. Now, overall, I thought this was a great episode. I liked a lot of the elements of it. What I didn't like is that the pacing was a little bit choppy and the ending was incredibly choppy. Like, the ending just like cut off, like we're out, boom, we're gone. And the other thing I did not like was the fridging of Layla. Like, she was literally there just preparing to kill her. I'm sure that they're going to work this out and it's going to be important later on down the road. But in the moment, it just felt ugh. So this episode, I'm gonna give it a 7. It was definitely a solid series opener. Now then we have episode 2, Shadows Waiting. It opens up in the White Cloak camp, the Children of the Light, and it's a very clean and pristine yet very ominous scene. we meet Eamon Valda, and he's being rewarded for capturing a yellow Aes Sedai. And we see her, she's got her hands cut off, she's on the firing pillar, she's about to be burned at the stake, and he's eating this dish that cuts his mouth open. And the whole scene, it really sets a mood that lets you know that the children of the light are not to be messed with. And he's just collecting these rings from all of the Aes Sedai that he captures. So as far as openings go, this is a good one. This is also the first episode that we get the actual opener for the series, and it's really beautifully done. We see the light weaving, and the weaving creates this portrait of the Aes Sedai, and it's actually very beautiful, and it goes right into the dragon wheel. It's really well done. Now, we can't tell how much time has passed by when we cut into the next scene, but we see Egwene and Perrin, Matt and Rand. They're following Lan and Moraine, and they're being hunted down by these Trollocs. The Trollocs are like right on their tail, and they're running through the woods. By nightfall, they run into the Terran Ferry, which is part of the Two Rivers region, and they convince Master Hightower to give them a ride across the ferry just in time. The Trollocs are literally right behind them, so they're not even across the river when all of these Trollocs just show up. One of the Trollocs jumps in the water. It can't swim. They realize that the water is way too deep, so they're stuck on the other side. Then their leader, the Eyeless, shows up, and they're waiting on the other side because they're like, this ferry dude is going to come back. But Moraine is like, nope, we got to let the ferry go. Master Hightower is highly upset about this, but Lan cuts it loose anyway. Moraine tries to sink it, and Master Hightower jumps in the water because he's worried about his son who might come back, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't want to lose his ferry. So he jumps into the water, and he's drowned by this whirlpool that Moraine creates. And we've got the Evansfield 4 are looking at Moraine and Lan like they just killed this dude. Now they're exhausted, but they finally make it to some abandoned cave dwellings, and they finally can get some sleep. Moraine wakes up Egwene and tries to help her get her channeling started to see how powerful she is. And they have a really beautiful moment where she gives her a jewel gift and tries to teach her how to get lost in it. And then she tells her that she doesn't listen to the wind listens to her. And then Moraine also explains to Egwene that she didn't kill Master Hightower, that the Aes Sedai are bound by these oaths, and one of them is that they can't just kill somebody for no reason. It was Master Hightower's decision to jump into the water, and he was drowned. Egwene then finds Rand. He's laying down by himself. She tries to lay down with him, but he explains to her that he is really just wanting to be alone, so she leaves. He has this really disgusting nightmare where he's barfing up a bat. It's so gross. Then this dark shadow appears with flaming eyes, which scares the crap out of him, and he wakes up, only to find out that there's dead bats everywhere, and everyone had the same dream. Now Moraine tells them that if they have dreams like that again, because dreams need something, that they need to tell her. But she doesn't tell them why. Then again, Rand starts accusing Moraine, and she's had enough of it. She's like, do what you want. I'm out of here. Follow me or not. Her and Lan, they get on their horses and they take off. Egwene is like, look, she's done nothing but help us. She was right. The Trollocs are following us, which means that the people in our village are safe. I'm going. At this point, Matt is with her. He's like, yeah, Rand, you're being a jerk. Let's go. And Perrin is still super quiet, super moody, and they just all eventually just go along. So Lan is scouting ahead, and he hurries back and lets her know, we've got white cloaks ahead. Moraine gives him her ring, and she's like, don't say anything about where we're going. And she's just a lady from a fallen house. She's got to work this so that she doesn't end up losing her hands and burning at the stake. They search her and check everything out. Everything seems to be on the up and up, and they discover that she's got this nasty wound. Lan tells Eamon that he needs to keep his hands to himself because it's rude. And Joffrey, the leader of the White Cloaks, tells Moraine that she needs to find an Aes Sedai to heal that because it looks jacked up. But why he's asking her to find an Aes Sedai, I don't know. Sounds kind of like a trap. The White Cloaks let them go, but I don't trust any of this. So they're on their way again, and the next scene is probably one of the best scenes, I think, of this episode. Matt starts out the song Weep for Mernethrin, and they all start singing it together. It's very folky, very, very sweet and calming. But then Moraine asks them, do they know what the song means? And she gives them the story of Mernethrin, and it's really beautiful. After this, they come upon an old abandoned dwelling. They think, okay, guys, we're going to rest here for the night. And Lan mentions that they haven't seen Trollocs for days. Egwene and Rand have a moment where she's like, look, I don't want you to hate me because of the choice that I made. And he tells her that he could never hate her. And then we cut to a scene where we've got Perrin has been nursing this really gnarly wound on his leg. He's off on his own for a bit, and he runs into a pack of wolves. And at first he's nervous, and then he gets this really calm look on his face. The wolf comes up and licks his wound. And then all the wolves leave. And Perrin has no idea what this means. So while they're sleeping at night, Egwene hears something in the wind, and it wakes her up, and she sees the eyeless in the distance. Lan is up. He's telling everybody, get up, let's go. Moraine is not doing well. She has been getting worse and worse throughout this episode from that wound that she has. Lan gives Moraine to Perrin and tells them to go. And he, I guess, is going to be the one that's the fallback guy or the leader guy to try and get them to safety. Then they run into these massive walls for the city of Shadar Logoth. And the horses stop. They don't want to go in. The Trollocs, they stop. They don't want to go in any further. But Lan's like, come on, let's go. And the four follow him right in. And Perrin notices that there's no birds, there's no bugs, there's no wind. There's just nothing inside of this abandoned city. Lan tells them a little bit of the history of that it used to be called Eredal, and that the people were wiped out and that they are not to touch anything. Rand decides to do a little exploring, and so we get to really get a look at this beautiful city. You can imagine what it used to be. And he finds this high spot where he's just overlooking the whole place. And Egwene joins him, and it's a really beautiful scene. So props on the scenery again. We then cut to a really sweet scene with Perrin and Matt gives Perrin a knife that was made by Layla and tells him how she gave it to him thinking that if Perrin ever got into trouble, it would probably be because of Matt. So it was a very touching scene, which really kind of shows their friendship. Now, of course, things can't stay good. We're almost at the end of the episode, and they're saved. Oh no, we can't have that. So now they're all resting. Matt sees a shadow and is lurking around and kind of follows this shadow. The shadow leads him to a box where he finds a new dagger. So not only has he touched the box and opened it, but he then takes the dagger. So now, almost immediately, we hear the horses start getting rattled. What's going on? Well, Egwene goes out and she sees that this black stuff is starting to touch the horses, and the horses are freaking out. Perrin and Rand follow her out, and they just watch this horse be devoured by this black gooey stuff, and it's disintegrated. The black goo starts chasing them, and they run back in the building. They're split up. Matt and Rand end up on one side, Perrin and Egwene end up on the other side, and the goo is coming for them. And they tell each other to run. Egwene and Rand say that they'll find each other, and they go. And even though they're about to be devoured by some goo, we get a really funny scene where Rand is telling Matt to hoist him up so that he can jump over this gate. And Matt's like, why don't you lift me up? Eventually they decide, yeah, they're lifting over Rand. Rand goes over, and just in the nick of time, Rand's able to get the gate open. They escape through a sewer grate, and they need to get in the water and get away from the stuff that's about to disintegrate them. While on the other side of the building, or the city, or wherever they're at, because they're all separated, Perrin and Egwene end up going up. So they're up at the top of this wall, and there's only one way down. The goo is about to get them and disintegrate them. They lock hands and they just go for it. They jump into the moat. They somehow survive this, and they get out of the water. They're calling for Rand and Matt, but they can't hear anything. This place is absolutely massive. They have no idea where either one of them is at. So they just figure, okay, we're just going to start heading east. and hopefully we'll run into each other. Matt and Rand, they decide to do the same thing. Now, Lan and Moraine are the only ones that were able to escape on horseback. He finds a safe spot for him and Moraine to rest, and he can tell that the Trollocs are no longer following him, so he thinks they're good to go. And then there is a knife to his throat, this massive knife, and we look back to see that it is Nynaeve. Nynaeve has found him, and she just wants one thing. She wants to know where her friends are, and she wants to know now. So Nynaeve is alive. I really like this ending. It makes you want to know what happens next. How did she find them? So this was all good. As far as the episode goes, I think it's better than the first episode. Like, the pacing was much better. I think it helped with the pacing that the whole group was together, so everything went kind of chronologically. And we got a light mention to let you know that it's been days, that days have passed by while all of this is happening. So it's a lot of moving and chasing, moving and chasing, moving and chasing, with the big ending with them being split up. It's working for me. I'm going to give this episode an 8. I'll give it an 8. All right, so now we're moving on to episode 3, and it opens up with Nynaeve, and we find out what actually happened to her. So she's being dragged away by this Trolloc, and it looks like it's over for her. But not so fast, because this Trolloc sees another Trolloc who's dying, and I guess they're super greedy, and he takes this opportunity to just devour the innards of this other Trolloc, thinking that Nynaeve is completely knocked out. Well, she's not completely knocked out, so she sees what's happening, and she gets this burst of energy. She gets up, and she takes off. So now the Trolloc is chasing her, and she runs into the caves that we saw her in the first episode. So she doesn't know what to do. She's kind of like, okay, I'm trapped here in the cave now, and this thing is still following me. She decides to get into the water, and the Trolloc is just looking for her. And he looks into the water and takes his spear and just starts jabbing into the water, because he knows she could not have gotten out. So he gets into the water and is searching around for her, and she just totally, really stealth, just like sneaks up. There's steam or mist or something coming up from around her, and she just takes his knife and starts just stabbing him right deep in the chest. They both go down under the water. The beautiful blue water turns to this disgusting red color. Then after a few seconds, Nynaeve comes up victorious. She has beaten the Trolloc, and she does the infamous braid flip. It's wonderful. This is probably the best opening so far. So now we're back where we left off at the end of the last episode. So Nynaeve has the knife to Lan's throat. She wants to know where her friends are. He says, they're not here, but I can help you find them. How did you find me? She goes, I tracked you. And now he's trying to talk her down. He explains that the Dark One is coming and that she doesn't know what's going on. So he tries to bargain with her. Look, if you Moraine, then we will help you find your friends, because we want to find them too. And he's like, look, I know you're not going to kill me, to which she immediately tries to kill him. He seems a little surprised that she actually had the guts to try it, and then he proceeds to knock her out. Cut to Rand and Matt, and it looks like it's the next day, and they cannot find Perrin and Egwene. He's calling for her, and Matt's like, forget about it, it's over. Matt thinks that this whole Dragon Reborn thing is just a bunch of garbage. He doesn't believe it. Rand's like, no, I'm going to head east because I believe that Egwene believes it, and I'm going to go where she's going. So while Matt and Rand end up on the mountain somewhere, Egwene and Perrin look like they're down in a valley, and they're freezing cold. They're trying to warm up, and we see Perrin is trying to start a fire, and we think that Egwene has actually started the fire by maybe channeling a little bit. So they're now able to get warm, but they hear the wolves like howling in the distance. And she's really worried because she doesn't know where Matt and Rand are. And Perrin says that they're going to go east because Rand's going to go wherever she goes. Now we cut back to Lan and Nynaeve. He's got her tied to a tree, and he's trying to tend to Moraine, and she's just knocked out. She's in really, really bad shape. Lan gives Nynaeve some water and manages to convince her to help him save Moraine so that they can find her friends. And she goes along with it. So he starts following her very closely, watching the things that she picks and how she makes this poultice to heal her. He's watching her pick the flowers. He's watching her dig through different types of moss. And she's getting a little annoyed. She's like, look, you don't have to just keep watching me. I'm not going to run away. Because obviously she wants to find her friends. He ignores her and he just kind of like follows her around anyway. Now, Lan has been curious. He wants to know how she was able to track him. And she's not going to tell him. But she does make the poultice and she puts it on Moraine. And now she tells him that all they can do is wait. So then we cut back to Perrin, and he's having this nightmare. He's back home in his cabin, and these wolves are eating Layla's innards. It's so disgusting. And then out of nowhere, Fire Eyes appears again. He wakes up, the wolves are howling, and Egwene has also been awakened. So now they're running. They're running in like this weird zigzag, and it's like the wolves are like hurting them. No matter which way they go, the wolves are there. Once they get out into a clearing, the wolves just stop. Then we get back to Matt and Rand, and they have a very humorous moment because Matt is really cold. He's wearing like this raggedy robe, and Lan has a really cool coat. They happen upon a mining village, and there is a dead person hung with arrows stuck through his chest. Clearly this guy did something that the mining town didn't appreciate, but Matt takes a look and notices that there's a jewel hanging on the man's side. And of course, Matt being Matt, that would catch his eye. So they head into the mining village. It's another really cool set. It really does look and feel like you're in this village. They head into the tavern where they meet Dana, but they don't have enough money for booze. They can only eat. Then we meet Tom. He comes in, he grabs his guitar. He's a gleeman, and he plays this very depressing song for all the miners. They get really quiet and just listen. After he sings, he sits down with Matt and Rand, and Dana brings them their food. Rand pays for his food, but Matt can't pay for his food because Matt is missing his money. The gleeman pulls out Matt's little pouch of money and points over to a pickpocket who pickpocketed him, but Tom also does not give Matt back the money. So now Matt is even more on edge. He is just not having a good time. So now I'm just going to wrap up Perrin and Egwene's storyline. They run into some tracks on the way across the valley, and they realize that the wolves kind of herded them in this direction. You can still hear the wolves howling in the background. They end up running into the Tinkerers, and Isla asks them, do you know the song? They have no idea what she's talking about, so Aram steps forward and tells them to say that they don't know the song. So they repeat this little saying, and both of them say, but I do not know the song. So the Tuon, or Tinkerers, they invite them into their camp. They're nomadic. They've got these really cool painted wagons that they use, very colorful robes. They set them out by a fire. They give them some really good looking vegan food, and they warm them up and really take care of them. And they tell them that they're welcome to come along if they want. And even though they have a bad reputation for allegedly kidnapping and stealing, they're very peaceful people. Things start getting interesting back in the mining town. We have Dana is setting up a room for Matt and Rand, and she tells them that they can work out their couple problems because she had a conversation with Matt earlier where he tells her that he's basically going to leave Rand and he wants to go back home. And she tells Matt that it's a shame because he actually got out, and she would love to get out because she's been born in the dirt, and she just gives this really kind of tragic life story. So now that she's with Rand, she's telling him, you know, you guys can work things out. And Rand's like, oh, we're not together. And she's like, oh, I can't tell. Meanwhile, Matt has snuck off, and he is trying to get that jewel off of the dead body that they saw when they first got into the mining town. And Tom catches him and stops him. They have a conversation about how this guy's death might have had more to do with who he was than the fact that he stole something. You can see that the guy has red hair like Rand. Matt tells Tom, he's like, look, dude, I just need this because I've got people back home that are depending on me. I've got no money. And Tom just tells him, okay, just do what you got to do. Let me know when you're done. And Matt takes the jewel, and then he also takes a little animal carving, like a little toy or figurine, and he apologizes to the dead guy. And then Tom tells him, okay, well, if you took the guy's stuff, the least you could do is help me bury him. Back at the tavern, Dana and Rand are having another deep conversation, and it gets a little awkward when she leans in for a kiss, and he's like, well, that's not what I'm here for. And then things get even more awkward when Dana's like, was the braid too much? Did it make me look too much like her? And Matt's like, what? And she's like, Egwene. And he's like, how do you know who Egwene is? And then everything gets crazy. Dana tries to lock him in a room, and it's got this big iron door that 3 men couldn't break down. And Dana's like, we're waiting for the eyeless. I already called him, so he's on his way. Rand starts beating on this door that allegedly no one can knock it down. And all of a sudden, it's like he's summoning some kind of power because he gets some massive strength and he just busts the door down. They start running. You know, he's trying to run. Dana's coming after him. He runs into Matt and he's just like, Matt, run. Matt looks back, sees Dana coming after them, and they just take off. They have no idea where they're going, so Dana is able to trap them by taking a shortcut. And she's got Rand's sword pointed at them, telling them, don't move. And she's like, I know that one of the 5 of you is the dragon. I see you in my dreams. And she believes that if she brings the dragon to the Dark One, that she's going to be lifted out of this impoverished life in a mining town. And Rand's like, you're just going to let the Dark One kill us. And she's like, no, the Dark One doesn't want to kill you. He wants to save all of us. She's like, it's the Aes Sedai that want to kill you. She believes that the dragon can break the wheel and make all of their suffering stop. And she tells them that the eyeless or the Fade is on their way. Well, Tom is behind her, and Tom hears this, and he just hurls this knife right at her, slits her throat, and she is done. And Rand looks completely appalled. He's like, you killed her. And he's like, did you not hear what she said? She is a dark friend, and the eyeless is coming for you. You need to run now. Let's go. Matt is in agreement. He's like, let's get out of here. And so they take off. And I love everything about this storyline. It was great. It was exciting. And you got a lot of knowledge about what's going on. The other storyline that I really liked is cutting back to Moiraine, Nynaeve, and Lan. So Lan, he takes off and he's like, I gotta go. And Nynaeve's like, where are you going? How do you know I'm not gonna leave or kill her? And Lan's like, you're not gonna do that. I know you're not. So he takes off. He looks over a cliff and then he returns later and is like, I found what we're looking for. So they mount their horses and they take off. Eventually they find the Aes Sedai sisters, which is apparently what Lan has been looking for. Now, Liandrin tells Moiraine that they found the dragon reborn, and this is where we meet Logain. And the Aes Sedai have him in a cage, and they've got him guarded, and Moiraine looks up like, whoa, have I got the wrong guy, or is this guy the false dragon? So, a really cool ending to the episode. Overall, I really liked this episode. I think I liked it a little bit better than episode 2. I'm going to still give it an 8, but I think I'm going to maybe give it an 8.2 or an 8.5. So I'm putting it just a little bit above episode 2 right now. Okay, so now we're on episode 4, and I'm going to try and temper my excitement because this episode was so good. It opens with King Galdan, and his kingdom is in peril. They are in a battle, and he's not doing great. He's been wounded pretty bad in the shoulder, and they're on the run. His men tell him to go and run, and that they will try to hold back these dark forces. And we see what the battle is all about, and it is Logain Albar, and he's got this light coming from him that's surrounded in this slick black oil, and he looks powerful. King Galdan realizes that this battle is lost, and he tells Logain that he's never going to get his crown. And Logain's like, the crown means nothing to the dragon reborn. Gildan says that he's called for the Aes Sedai at the White Tower to come and let them know. And Logain's like, they should be with me, not fighting me, because he has no intention of breaking the world. He wants to heal it. Logain's also hearing these voices that are telling him to just kill the king, and he's responding to the voices, and the king is like, you've lost your mind. He tries to kill Logain, but Logain easily stops him with his weave, and instead of killing the king, he spares his life. He heals that gnarly looking scar on his shoulder and tells him that there's room for everyone on his side, even his enemies. So yeah, again, this one, best opening so far. Nynaeve's opening, where she's getting taken by the Trollocs, that's a close second. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit shorter because this video is long AF. We've got Perrin and Egwene. They're still with the Tuon, but they've got to decide if they're going to keep traveling with them or if they're going to go their own separate ways. And Perrin's a little uncertain, and Egwene just reminds him that if one of them wants to go, they both go. No questions asked. Aram tells them that they can go with them if they want. They're happy to have them. And eventually they decide that they're going to go with them. So Perrin and Egwene find out that the reason why the Tuon are traveling this direction is because there's too many soldiers on the road. And Perrin's like, with a group this size, they should be able to defend themselves. That's when they teach them about the way of the leap, which is the Tuon philosophy that they follow of non-violence. And when Perrin questions this, Isla tells him when's the last time he picked up a weapon and was better off afterwards. And she specifically mentions an axe, which kind of gets to Perrin because, of course, we know that he killed his wife with an axe. So at night, they park the caravans and they eat and they celebrate. And Egwene is curious, so she asks Aram about the song. And he thinks it's a silly tradition, but he does tell her that before the breaking, his people knew a song and they believe that if they find the song, then they'll have peace and harmony again. And she goes, look around, have you not found peace and harmony? And Aram looks around and it's like he's seeing the silly tradition, as he called it, in a whole new light. Meanwhile, Perrin, he's not really in a party mood, so he's just going around helping people fix their wagons and doing various tours. And he talks to Isla about how they can be so peaceful and never be violent even when they're attacked. And she tells him the story about her daughter, how her daughter was murdered for no reason but for sport. And she thinks, what better revenge against violence than peace? After things have settled down for the night, Aram asks Egwene who's the man that holds her heart and if she lost him, and she says no. If she would have lost him, she would know. But obviously he's not with her. Then Aram lets her know that when they turn 20, that they leave the wagons, and for a time they experience the outside world. And he says some of them sail, some of them farm, and some of them even take up arms. And you kind of get the sense that he's approaching 20, so he's going to have to make these decisions too, and maybe he's a little uncertain about it. And he tells her that most of them return home, but not all. And the whole setup with the Tinkerers is really so nice. You get a lot of world building and you get character development, even though this is not a lot of action. But speaking of getting some action, Matt and Rand have been following Tom. They're looking for a place to sleep because they're getting tired. Tom is out scouting, and while he's doing that, Matt and Rand have a little bit more banter. It's kind of fun. Tom finds them a place to stay. They're going to sneak into a barn at night while the farmer is asleep, and Matt's horse is giving him a hard time, so they joke with him about that. But what the problem really is that they've been caught. So the farmer has his bow and arrow drawn on them. Rand manages to talk him down, realizing that he didn't want to kill them in the first place. And the farmer actually does put down his bow and arrow, and they turn around, and the farmer's wife and son also have bow and arrows drawn on them. And she offers them to stay in the barn after they muck it out first, which you can already see Matt is not a fan. And then Matt and Rand end up doing all of the work because Tom says he's a gleeman. He's got to watch out for things, so he can't be mucking out the barn. Matt's had about enough of this, so he takes off and he gets really sick and he starts throwing up. And then you see this black goo, just like the stuff that was at the abandoned city that they escaped from, but it's oozing out of his mouth and then it crawls back into his mouth after he's done throwing up. So gross. He's caught off guard by Helga, the farmer's daughter. She offers him some bread and then she talks to him for a little bit. She's not scared of him at all, and she gives him her little doll, her little Brigitte. But while Matt is gone, it's time for Tom to have a little talk with Rand, and he's like, look, Matt is being taken by the darkness. I've seen it before. He tells him about his nephew and that how even after his nephew was gentled, he just killed himself, because once you have that power, you don't feel like you're anything without it. And you can see that Rand is really worried about Matt. And before they all go to sleep, Rand has this moment with Matt where he tells him, I'm here for you no matter what. It's so sweet. The friendship, you can really feel the friendship between these guys. The actors are doing a phenomenal job. While they're sleeping, Rand has this terrible nightmare. He dreams that his friend Perrin is forging someone, looks like Layla. In his dream, Matt is walking around in a daze with blood on his hands. And then he sees Egwene and she's calling out to him. And then she suddenly gets snatched by Fire Eyes. And so by now we know whenever they dream about this dude, he's close by. So he wakes up in a start. Tom is there. Tom's like, I got you. We got to find Matt. And when they find Matt, Matt is in the house. And the farmer and his family are slaughtered. And not gonna lie, it looks like he did it, but you don't see the blood on his hands anymore. He's in a complete daze, and he just looks up and he takes the dagger and he points and says, I see you. And then you see the fade in the distance up in the rafters, and that thing comes down so fast. Tom just starts throwing daggers. He tells Rand and Matt to get out of there, and then him and the spade just start fighting. As Matt and Rand are leaving, they see the little girl Helga. She's dead too, and Matt is just looking completely shocked. Rand finally gets him to get out of there. They get on the horses and they take off, and he drops little Brigitte the doll, who is very ominously left on the side of the road. Everything about this storyline gets an A+. So that takes us to Lan, Moiraine, and Nynaeve. They go back to the Aes Sedai camp. And you can tell Nynaeve is not trusting anybody, so she's off by herself. She goes on the top of a cliff where she can kind of overlook everything, and she can see where the Aes Sedai are going and where their warders are going. And then Lan just looks up and shakes his head because there's no reason for her to be by herself. You can also see that the Reds kind of stick with themselves. They are really tough-looking girls who don't take warders. The Aes Sedai put Moiraine in Karini's tent, and Karini heals her, and Karini looks pretty rough after she heals her, and Egwene's like, that should not have strained you at all. You've held back armies. And she's like, it's not healing you that's put a strain on me. She goes, it's him. It's shielding him from using his powers. So now that Moraine's healed, she's curious. She's like, I want to meet this false dragon. So apparently they're keeping him in a cave that's some distance away, and it takes two of them just to hold him back from being able to use his power. Moiraine says that she's been healed enough, so she's going to help them out and take her part in shielding him so the other ones can have more rest. Then we get some really great sparring scenes with Steppen and Lan. They have been friends, you can tell, for years, despite the fact that Lan can be pretty quiet. And he questions Lan about Nynaeve. And Lan pretty much lets him know that there is nothing going on there. They just keep looking at each other for no reason. Then we get another great scene with Steppen and Karini, and we get to see more of this warder Aes Sedai bond, how close they are. And they talk about their friendship, how it's hard to be friends with Moiraine and Lan because they're so closed off into themselves. And you can see that Steppen is really worried about Karini because she's using so much energy shielding the false dragon. So Moiraine is with Alana in the cave, and they're shielding Logain, and it seems like Alana's trying to reconnect with Moiraine, and the two of them, they question how he can be so strong and still be the false dragon. Alana really believes that the end of their age is here. While they're talking, Logain kind of asserts some excessive power, and they have to kind of just rein him back in. And you really get the sense that he's not using all of his power. Nynaeve is still by herself, and Liandrin goes in and just kind of like starts asking her these really weird kind of questions. She's trying to be cordial, I think, but it's really coming off as kind of cringy. And Nynaeve is like, I'm not going to tell you anything until you answer my questions first. Lan finally comes and interrupts Liandrin. Liandrin offers Nynaeve to dine with them if she'd like. But as soon as Liandrin leaves, Nynaeve is like, that woman is a snake. So whatever Liandra was selling, Nynaeve was not buying it. But she's not letting Lan off the hook, because she's like, you took us days out of the way to get here when I'm looking for my friends. And he makes a promise that we're going to find them. He goes, I give you my word, we're going to find your friends. And then he offers her to eat with the warders at their campfire. And we see later on that she actually takes them up on it, and she's enjoying herself. The warders are a lot more fun than they look, as she states. And they're having a good time. They're relaxed. They're having fun conversation. They're kind of giving Lan a little bit of a hard time when they ask, how did you guys meet up? And she's like, I tracked him. And it's nice because we also get to see the dynamics between the warders. Some of the warders are friends, and some of the warders seem to be more of a pair, even with their Aes Sedai. And Stepan kind of explains that the bond between the Aes Sedai and her warder is more than that of a sister or a spouse, that there is nothing closer. And then some of the greens, like Alana, they take multiple warders. Alana's got 2. And you can really tell Nynaeve looks a little curious about what the relationship is like between Lan and Moiraine. Lan meets up with Moiraine after she's been healed and after she's done taking her turn shielding the false dragon. And he sits with her, and she gets a little sentimental. And he says, you always get sentimental when I drink, which kind of lets you know that they really do kind of feel what each other is feeling. In the morning, Nynaeve sees Lan going somewhere, and she kind of follows him and finds him praying. And then she joins him in a prayer, and she's speaking in the Old Tongue, a prayer that her parents said to her before she lost them. And he asks her if she wants to know what it means, and she does, and he tells her. And so they have a really nice moment, and she says, you're not exactly what I thought, Lan Mondragon. And he said, you're exactly what I thought you were, Wisdom Nynaeve. And she's like, what is that? After she calls him a lapdog with 2 legs, and they kind of smile about that. But we don't get to find out what he thinks, because they're interrupted by some horns going off. There's some commotion. Turns out Logain's army is upon them. So his army sends this barrage of arrows hurtling their way, and then we get to see how Alana can stop the arrows. But while she's doing that, we see that Lan kind of like steps in front of Nynaeve. I know, it's the little things, but I notice them. So Alana turns the arrows, and then she sends them flying back at Logain's army and wipes out a good number of the front line. But now they've got a lot of chaos ensuing, and back at the caves, Logain is able to break out of his binds, and he knocks Liandrin and Carini out. But before he can get out, Moiraine comes in, and she's like, tell me why I should believe you. And of course, he's trying to recruit people to his side, and he really thinks that the Aes Sedai should be on his side. So he's like, I'm the Dragon Reborn. I've got all this power. I hear these voices. And she listens to him for a minute, and she waits for Carini and Liandrin to get their strength back. And then she tells him that basically he's crazy, and the 3 of them get up and try to lock him down. While they're holding on to him, he's able to get these 3 kind of like shards of power through, and Carini is able to save Moiraine and Liandrin, but the 3rd one strikes Carini and takes her out. She's done. Back on the battlefield, Stepan is dazed. It's like he can feel it. He knows something's wrong. He's like, we got to get back to the caves. We have a problem. And when she's dying, he's just like completely out of it. He's barely hanging on. He gets attacked. He does ward off the attack, but you can tell he's barely standing on his feet. He's a mess. Finally, Alana's just like, go to the caves. Me and my warders, we're going to hold this off. And she just starts blowing up the ground. like she's pulling power from, I don't know where she's pulling it from, but she's just blowing up the whole ground. And you see the army just flying all over the place. So when they get back to the cave, they see that Moraine and Leandrin are holding him down. And Stepan sees Carini and she is dead. And he loses it. He goes into a warder's rage and he takes 2 axes and goes straight for Logain. Of course, this is a huge mistake. Once his axes are able to penetrate the shield even just a little, then Logain's able to use that axe. He breaks it into pieces and it's shrapnel everywhere. Blood everywhere. People are going down. It's so fast. He just started to wiping people out. One of the shards almost hits Nynaeve, but it misses her, and she looks around, and literally everybody is down, severely wounded, bleeding, and she looks over, and Lan has his throat slit, and he is laying on the ground, and he's bleeding out. She runs over to him, and she can't stop it. Like, the blood is spewing everywhere. It's just an absolute mess. And it's like out of nowhere, Nynaeve just channels all this power and she's just screaming no, and Jen just light bursts from her. It's incredible. This scene looks so cool. Her braids go flying up in the air and she just starts healing everybody. Leandrin and Moraine are looking at her like they've never seen anything like this. And not just that, but Logain is watching her. And earlier when Moraine had told him that he was the false dragon, she had used this line, like the raging sun. So he didn't even know the type of power that the dragon would have. But when he sees Nynaeve, it's almost as if he realizes that he doesn't have the amount of power that she has. And it's almost like you could see he just says like the raging sun, and he just kind of like his will gives in a little bit. And Moraine and Leandrin and Alana comes in and they're able to put him down. And Leandrin, she's had it. She's like, he's done. We're doing this now. We are going to gentle him right now. And her face lights up. She's taking all of the power out of him. And then you can just see the light and the black just leaving his body. And he's just left there laying like nothing. And you see Nynaeve, then she's just sitting there and she's shocked and everyone is looking at her. This was so cool. The whole episode was great, and this was like the perfect ending. So from start to finish, I mean, I've never given an episode a 10. I don't know if this is a 10 because if they're doing this now in episode 4, I wonder what else they can do. So I'm not going to give it a 10. I'm going to give it a 9. It is more than a 9. It is probably a 10. I can't say for sure. So I'm going to give this a solid 9 for right now. But it kind of feels to me like this was the perfect episode. All of the beats were hit spot on. The quiet moments with the Tinkerers was well done. You had a lot of action and a lot of gore and a lot of eeriness with Rand and Matt. And then like really this action-packed scenes that you get here with the Warders and the Aes Sedai. And on top of that, you have so much bonding between the friends. You get a deeper look into the friends and a deeper look into the world building. Like this, if they make all the episodes like this, I will be very, very happy. So for right now, I am going to give this episode a 9, but it feels like it could be a 10. But I'm going to give it a 9 because I don't know what else they got coming. So now, if I'm going to rank my episodes in order so far, episode 1, I'm going to put that one in 4th place. Episode 2 and 3 are very close, but I'm going to put episode 2 in 3rd place. And then I'm going to put episode 3 in 2nd place. Like I said, 2 and 3 are pretty close, but I do feel like episode 3 was a little bit better than episode 2. And then episode 4, by far, not even a question, best episode so far, in my opinion. You guys, let me know what you think. What What rating are you giving each episode, and how would you rank them in order? Mine are in perfectly reverse order at the moment. 4, 3, 2, and 1 is the order from favorite to least favorite, even though I've enjoyed every single episode. So you guys just let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching this video. I did not mean for it to be this long. It is so long. But after this, I'm going to go episode by episode, so they'll be much shorter. Hopefully they'll be between 10 and 15 minutes. I will be doing episode 5, which is premiering soon. I cannot wait to see it. And once it premieres and I have a chance to make a video, I will tier rank that one with the rest of them. And I will let you know. You guys let me know, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching this video. And if you liked it and you want to chat about it, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button. And I would love to talk more with you guys.